Secret number one is all about the easy way to make sure that every prospect likes you and is eager to hear more from you. This is all about building up empathy with your prospect, you getting to know them a bit better and them getting to know you. Building a rapport which will create a great atmosphere and make your sales meeting a much more enjoyable experience for both yourself and your prospect. In future lessons, we'll be looking at other stages of the system, which are building credibility and your 3 credibility statements, asking questions, absolutely vital, and the correct type of questions to ask if you're going to get the sale at the end of the day, the check and pre-close, which is often missed out by a lot of salespeople but crucially important if we're going to be dealing with objections, selling the results, how to make a presentation, how to make a qualified presentation that really makes sense to the client and he will understand that your products or service will definitely meet his needs. The check again at stage 6, very important. Let's get those last minute objections out of the way before we go on to stage 7, the close, which if you follow my system will be a doddle at the end of the day. So what is it that you will learn? You will learn easy ways of building lasting relationships with your prospects and how they can become lifetime friends like many of my clients have become. Why creating a relaxed atmosphere actually increases the chance of making a sale. And you'll understand what to talk about and what subjects to avoid like the plague. Well, we all like to buy from people we can identify with, and I'm sure you can think of occasions when you've gone to buy something but the salesperson was cocky and overconfident, probably talked too much and was interested in themselves and their products rather than you or your company. Well, I wonder, did you make a purchase? Probably not, and I bet you actually resented it at the end of the day. So empathy is all about creating a comfortable atmosphere for your prospect to buy in and getting to know your prospect as an individual and him getting to know you. So what are the things we need to avoid? Well, first of all, we need to avoid sounding false, and often salespeople are not very creative in the way they try to create empathy, and it sounds false to their prospects, therefore defeating the whole object. It's also a good idea to avoid weather talk and how long the journey took, etc. I mean, nobody wants to hear about how bad the weather is or how busy the roads were. It's all kind of negative, so try to avoid that. Also, you need to avoid subjects which could be controversial. Sex and politics are obvious, but obviously there are others. And again, talking about the game last night might be a big turn off for someone who hates football, because their other halves might resent it, and because they spend all their time watching it. So, and also remember, your interests are probably not your client's interests, so be very careful on that one. So remember, your basic objective is to get your prospect to like you. And the easiest way to do this is to get them to talk about themselves. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. It's amazing that you can always find something in common with what they say. And there you go, job done. This is where your pre-meeting research is absolutely vital. Use your eyes in the days before your meeting and on the day to find out more about the person themselves, the company and the marketplace. Use the internet, go to their website. The more you can find out before the actual meeting starts, believe me, will pay massive dividends and get you off to a great start for your sales presentation. So what sort of things can we do to find out about the actual person we're going to meet? Well, one of the easiest ways is to Google them. It's absolutely amazing how much information there is out there on Google. So find them in Google, see if you can find out what their interests are, what they get up to, what sort of person they are. Have they got any awards in sport? Something that might have happened recently. Well worth doing a Google search for them. Look them up on Facebook. You might be able to see the type of groups they're members of, the type of profile they've got on Facebook, what sort of things they do in their social lives. Follow them on Twitter. I mean, if they've got a Twitter account, try following them in the days before the meeting. See what they're following, what they're up to. Do they have a profile on LinkedIn? Another resource that could be absolutely invaluable. Who are they connected to? What sort of people do they align themselves with? Have they got any videos on YouTube? It's always nice to see a photograph of the person you're going to meet so you recognize them straight away. Check out their biog on the company website. There might be some interesting facts in there, some companies that you might have dealt with in the past that you might know. So it's always useful to check their biog out on the website. And especially look for interests and hobbies, which can be really helpful to break the ice when you first get into the meeting. Because if you've got similar interests, one of my interests is sailing. If you've got similar interests, fantastic, you're off to a good start. Just a quick word of warning though, don't spend too long on those interests or else you won't have any time left for the meeting. Are they members of any clubs or associations? Again, gives you an insight into the types of things they like to do and the type of person they are. So it's always worth doing that research about the person themselves. And of course, you really must find out about the company. You must Google the company, find out what entries they've got on the web, if there's been any forum talk, anything like that. So Google the company and find out what entries they've got on Google. It goes without saying, you've really got to check out their website, and you should know every single thing that's on that website, because there might be a clue as to how you can help the company with your product or service given out through the website. Look for any comments, any blogs, anything that you might find in the press releases, or anything that can really give you an insight as to how they're doing at the moment, whether they've got any particular problems. You can see what people are saying about them in industry forums. Have they got a great reputation? Have they got a bad reputation? You can use both facts to help you in the sales process. Ask your Facebook friends if they've had any dealings with them. Do some research on LinkedIn, for instance. You could also ask to find out as much of an insight as you can into what's happening with the company right now. What's their reputation? Have they won any awards lately? Do they support any particular charity? All these things can give you a lot of ammunition to use in your sales process, especially when you're building up empathy to get onto mutual ground where you're both getting to know each other. You must also find out about the marketplace that the company's in. It may be a marketplace that you're not actually familiar with. So it's really important to find out about the marketplace. And again, a good place to start is Google for information about the industry. Is it a growing industry? Is it stagnant? Is it declining? Whereabouts in the marketplace is the company positioned? So there's lots of things that you really need to find out, so you've got a bit of an insight as to what might be going on. You can check out forums for trends, so look at industry forums. That's also a great way to find out information about the marketplace. Ask business colleagues for their feedback. Try and find somebody you know that has got some dealings in the marketplace to see if there's anybody they know that you can find information from. So vital to try and find out as much as you can about the marketplace. And a great trick I always use is to research who their closest rivals are. Who does the company actually, who do they aspire to be like? Can be very useful to know who their rivals are, because often that can trigger some of the desires in your prospect that you might not have unravelled if you didn't know who their rivals were. On-arrival research can also be a fantastic way to find out information. Make sure you arrive at your meeting a good 10-15 minutes before the meeting's due, and have a look around in the car park. I mean, you never know, your prospect might have a classic car parked in his parking bay, or a brand new car sat there. There's something to talk about. Take a look around reception. Are there any certificates on the walls? Any particular photographs? Any memberships of any organisations that you're familiar with? That's always worth looking out for. It's always a good idea to engage the receptionist and other staff in conversation. Just have a quick chat with them. Are they busy at the moment? Try to engage what type of company it is, and if there's a good atmosphere, and if the reception gives you a good welcome. That's always something that can be mentioned a little bit later on. So to sum up on this one, we're going to have a good look around your prospect's office and surroundings for clues that are going to help us to build empathy with them and build up a great rapport for our sales meeting. So we're now ready to meet our prospect. And the first thing we can do now is, we've got so much information, we can get the prospect talking about themselves or their company. We've got so much information, there must be a line or two that we can bring in and say something that will get them engaged and talking about themselves. Everybody loves to talk about themselves, don't forget that. And if you can pay them a compliment at this stage, then so much the better. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. Hi, it's great to meet you. I noticed the golf trophies in reception with your name on. How did you win them? Or I must say you've got a very smart building here. Or I must say your receptionist Joan is very good. She handled all my calls very well and looked after me when I came to reception. Just a little warning at this point, don't make this section of your presentation too long. You will be wasting their time and your own, and you risk your prospect thinking you are just a time waster, and we don't want that. So just keep this to a reasonable amount of time, and then we can move on to your credibility statement. A lot of what we're talking about in my system is actually taking control of the meeting. So you take control, so that helps you to stop a talkative prospect, help fill those pregnant pauses that come along, and make it easier for you to move on to the next step. I'm often asked, how do you actually take control of a meeting? Well, sometimes it's by stopping your prospect from talking and then you saying the thing that's going to happen next. So we could say something like, okay, we've got about an hour, or obviously whatever time your appointment is for. What I thought we could do is for me to tell you a little bit about my company, and perhaps you could do the same, and then we can see if we can do business today. How does that sound? Now this shows that you respect time and that you have an agenda for the meeting which actually has a point to it. And believe me, this always goes down very well because people don't like to think they're going to be wasting a lot of time. So really important, that one. Now we're ready to move on quickly. You're in control of the meeting, you're in control of the structure, and you can also stop immediate objections. And you should now be ready to start your credibility statement. Sometimes they may jump straight in with an objection. Something like, well, I'm only fact-finding, just tell me how much it is. Don't worry, these are actually buying signals. With early objections, just recognise and empathise with your prospect and then move on. An example of this, sometimes I say, well, I understand you want to do that and I'm going to cover that in some detail shortly. Then move on to your credibility statement. Right, so what are the things we need to remember about building empathy? First and foremost is we all prefer to buy from people we like and we can identify with. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The pre-meeting research can give up vital clues to help you establish a rapport with your prospect. It is unbelievable the amount of people who turn up to a business and have got no idea who they're meeting, what their company is all about and what type of products they sell. It never ceases to amaze me. And don't forget, keep your eyes widely open on arrival at the prospect's business for more immediate information that might be bang up to date on top of all the research that you've already done. And finally, it's essential that you firmly take control at this stage of the meeting. If you don't take control now, the rest of the meeting will just fall apart. And it shows that you are confident, professional and know what you're doing. And if done correctly, the other stages of my Triple S system will follow really easily. Okay, so it's over to you now. What I'd like you to do is find out 5 or more useful things about your next prospect. That's the person himself. Then find out 5 or more things about their business, their company. And find out 5 or more things about the marketplace that they operate in. From all that information, you should easily be able to identify 3 conversation areas to build empathy with your prospect. And don't forget to concentrate on any areas of mutual interest.